Hi, just a side note. For all our Troopy build videos, we use social media along with many other resources to help inform our decisions. So in the essence of helping others with their builds, we have put ours on social media too. Our build is just that, ours, each to their own. It is right for our needs and wants. It may or may not be right for yours. It's here for a resource, just as we use others for information and inspiration.
Yes. So I've got these two Stedi switches, and they are wide up and they mounted here. But I found the problem was two things. I wanted some sort of protective measure for turning on and off the diff lock so they weren't accidentally activated. And secondly, I know these are okay switches. They're from Stedi and they probably cost, I don't know, 15-20 bucks each. And they look nice, they look factory, and they illuminate really well. So then I got a bunch of other switches that I was going to use for headlights and spotlights and everything that was going to mount there or in the console. But I found just after, I haven't even wired them up. See, that one works. But I'm worried about that they're going to fail. This one's already failed, and they don't. You'd have to go through relays with them all because they're not designed as robust as like your rocker switches, which are good 20 amp switches. I know they're sturdy. I've used them in all the other builds, and I have a bit more confidence in them lasting. So although they're not as contemporary as these ones, I think we've decided to go back to a more robust, functional and reliable switch for all our switches. In terms of the diff lock, I'll show you what I've done. I installed it yesterday. So I've used the blanking plate. I've just gone to a good old reliable toggle switch, nice and sturdy, and with protective. So I've just used this blanking plate that was factory, and these will be the front and rear diff. So that'll be the rear diff. Got the toggle switch with the light attached to it, so that'll illuminate when it's turned on, and that'll be the front diff. The reason why I went these, I don't want the diffs to be accidentally switched on, and this is impossible to do. And I think the missile covers look pretty cool. So that's how they'll look. They don't hit your knee, they're in a safe position. And yeah, that's the new diff lock switches. So I've just wired up my test battery, just with them, just a positive and a ground going to the back of the diff lock switches, just to show you what they'll illuminate like. So I just got one of them wired up. Yes, which is exactly what I wanted. So when you're sitting in here, you know, you've got your rear diff lock engaged. When you put the missile cover down, it automatically shuts the toggle switch off. So there's two stages to turn it on. Lift the missile cover.
Now I'm just going to cut off the Stedi switch wiring connectors and wire the diffs directly to the new toggle switches. I'm pausing here to show detail of the wires and how I traced back in the engine bay and at the actual diffs themselves to confirm all the diff wire colours that you currently see that were attached to the Stedi switches. You can see at the top of the screen, yellow, white, green and red wires, which are coming from the engine bay. And where I've joined them are the Stedi old wire colours. 2 black wires are ground, a red and a white are power, the green and the blue are the diffs. So with the diff locks, first I had to find out where everything was, because they were installed by someone else and the switches were done by someone else and wired. I had to work out where they're all wired to. So this accessory fuse box on the driver's side, just here, the power was coming from this fuse box going into the diff relays. So after a lot of following wires from the actual diffs themselves, I located the power in this fuse box, and also the relay for the rear diff is there and the relay for the front diff is there. I then followed the wiring and the coloured wiring through the firewall to work out what was on the inside of the switches. So what I found out was the yellow wire coming in through the cab was for the front diff, and the green wire was for the rear diff. The red wire was power and the white wire was ground. Reason why that's important is because we changed over from the Stedi switches, and the Stedi switches are either like this, they'll have a black, red, blue and white, or, and in this case, the rear diff was this colour configuration and the front diff had black, blue, green and red. So I've tried to draw it to make sense. So this is how I changed the switches over from the Stedi push type to the standard toggle switch, which just has 3 blade terminals. So coming in from the engine firewall, as I said, the green wire was for the front diff, the yellow wire was for the rear diff, red and white were power and ground. So that's coming through the firewall. Now we cut all of these switches off, the wires from the Stedi switch, to remove them, but because they were all connected to these wires coming from the actual diffs, I then had to splice them in. So I'll just pause that there and just do one at a time. What made this a little bit more difficult is they use the different colouring for both the switches. So this is your Stedi switch wiring diagram that you get, and this is the main important point here: what colour the wires are when they come out. So I had to be careful wiring them up. So basically what I did for the front diff, the green wire, I connected also up to the green wire because that's for the actual accessory, and then I went to the toggle switch on the accessory blade terminal. The ground was easy. The ground was white. I connected the white with the black, as you can see here, and went to the ground blade terminal. And finally the power, which in this case was the red, connected it to the red and onto the power. Now, because the toggle switches don't have an illumination when you have your dash lights on, I just cut the blue and terminate it, and it's not being used. Similarly, and this is where it got confusing in terms of just making sure you have the right colours, because
they mean something different on this one. So black was the same, that was easy. Black goes to ground. This time the red one was not being used, so I just terminated them. Here the yellow wire coming directly from the rear diff was joined onto the blue wire and then went to the accessory terminal. And finally the white was the power in this case, and so white joined on with the red, and I continued the red onto the back of the rear diff lock new switch. So that was changing Stedi switches to a toggle switch. Just wired up the diff lock switches. I put the fuses back in the front engine bay for them. I'm just checking that there's power to them. How does that?